I hope everybody is staying well. I could make you very jealous. I hear that the weather in fine Toronto is less than desirable. It has been 31 degrees here today, and we're expected to reach 36 on Friday. That probably sounds wonderful to you, but it is hot. I actually took a walk outside today. I've been walking inside, so I guess that's why I said outside. And it was hot. But let me try to lessen your jealousy by saying that it's actually, hi Sheila, good to see you. It's actually a little dangerous when it's so nice outside, because you are very tempted to just go about your business in the old normal way. And I think there's cause to still be a little protective, going out with your mask and still keeping your distance from the crowds that still are outside. Don't hurry if that's not being suggested in your hometown. There's still what to do inside. Interesting, today I read, not unrelated to our session tonight, a beautiful article by, I see the Solomons, Rachel Sharansky Danziger, who, yes, is the daughter of Avital. I'm tempted to leave it at that and not refer to Natan because she deserves that credit, but is the daughter, their daughter, and she absolutely looks exactly like Avital. She writes a blog for the Times of Israel, and she was writing about this time, the Corona time, being inside, similar to the key character we're going to discuss today, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and him being in a cave. And there are pluses to that, she says, and minuses. But one of the things is that while we're inside, it's an opportunity, and I'm still not ready to give that up, to reflect, to see what our priorities are, to perhaps change some of our priorities. And so don't rush to be outside until you really should be outside. The second intro, I'm not sure if you can tell, but if you look closely at me, and if I might go like this while I'm speaking, there have been two debates going on in this country of mine in the last couple of weeks. Some kids having gone back some grades to school already a few days ago, it was suggested that perhaps the norm of having a vacation on Lag BaOmer maybe should be ignored. And because the kids just started at school, they shouldn't take off school. So there was a debate, but schools were closed today, except for some nurseries that they were having their special activities. The second debate was on a more personal level. Whether for this class, I needed to go to the hairdresser or not. And you can see if you look closely that I won and said, I trust these people that they will endure if it is an eyesore. Anyway, okay. So those are my words of entry. And let's begin. In the time of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, an omer, a barley sheaf, was brought to Yerushalayim, my town, as an offering from the second day of Pesach for 49 days. And hence, and if you will, you may join by saying Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. It being already past 8:30 tonight. Hayom arba'a v'shloshim yom shehem arba'a shavuot v'shisha yamim ba'omer. Amen. Amen. As I recited this bracha, I was in fact asserting the profound connection, I believe, between Pesach and Shavuot, between Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus, and us standing at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, to receive the Torah. For isn't the Torah the ultimate objective of us becoming a nation and having left Egypt? The initial step being Yetziat Mitzrayim. I'd like to introduce our topic today. I have got 3 introductions apparently, with a bit more background and 2 thoughts. Lag BaOmer is known as a celebration amidst a period of Evel, mourning. There are different theories. We know that we think of Rabbi Akiva's students, so many thousands dying. Some think because of an illness due to the fact that they didn't always know how to treat each other, but that's another topic. Some say on Lag BaOmer that plague stopped. Others allude to the fact that Rabbi Akiva supported the Bar Kokhba military rebellion against the Romans. And it's possible, because he was a teacher, that he influenced many of his students, and they joined the Bar Kokhba rebellion and fought. And possibly, because none of this is for sure, possibly Lag BaOmer was a day where the students joining in Bar Kokhba had a battle and a victory. That's possible. It is also the day that our key character today, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, died. Now that might sound funny because I said it's a celebration. He had asked that his Yahrzeit be a day for celebration. And so we celebrate his life. We might be critical of him today, at least to begin with, but his is a life to be celebrated. I'm not sure if you know, he was a student of Rabbi Akiva and went on to become an equally great teacher. He also authored the Zohar of the Kabbalistic tradition. And in fact, for some, the bonfires that usually span this whole country on Lag BaOmer and light up the cities, the towns, they are said to represent Shimon Bar Yochai's passion and the light and the fire that filled his home as he taught. By the way, I must add that if any of you have heard that the warnings regarding not making these bonfires this year in crowds, if you have heard that there have been groups of people who did not pay attention, but I want you to know that that is not because of their leaders. Rabbi Lau, Chief Rabbi Lau, made it quite clear that that was not to happen today. I'm just saying that as an aside. Now, 2 more thoughts before we look at our text. And please keep these thoughts in mind as we read. Let me ask you, when you are looking forward to a special occasion, how do you count? And please unmute yourself and offer an answer. You're looking forward to a special occasion. How do you usually count toward that day? Somebody?
How many days are left? Not counting up, you're counting the other way.
Absolutely. That is the norm. That is the norm.
Meetings.
Then I want to ask you, if the norm when you're looking forward to something is to count in descending order, why, when we are counting the Omer, do we do it in ascending order? If last night welcome Felsons, if last night I counted 33, tonight 34, tomorrow will be 35. If we really are looking forward to Shavuot, why do we count in ascending order? Anybody want to take a guess? No right or wrong answers, but it's an interesting thought. Anyone?
No, I have no idea.
No? Who's
No
saying no for everybody?
It's Zipporah. No, I'm trying to think. I have no idea why. It's just what we've always done.
You're not one to do whatever is always done, but we won't
I
go.
set you up. Say thank you.
All right, so Morley?
Well, we're counting the Omer. Omer is
Yes.
the measure. And we can't count down the measure. We have to count up the measure.
It's true.
Okay, that is one thought. Here's another. When we are counting the days of that Omer, each day is built on the basis of the former day. What does this mean for us and our discussion? You take this materialistic Omer, and that's not putting it down. It just happens to be something tangible, material, and that barley Omer that was brought to a holy place represents a process that is so key to our tradition. What is that process? Of going from lower to higher. We are constantly on a ladder, combining the earth to the heavens. And so we begin with the Omer for the 49 days, ultimately arriving at Har Sinai, receiving that spiritual gift known as the Torah. That's the first thought. The second thought, if you noted, I think at least twice, I said that we begin the counting of the Omer and they began bringing the Omer to the Beit HaMikdash on the second day. Why do we only begin to count on the second night of Pesach? Anybody?
Mike, Stephen.
Stephen, hi.
The answer to the first question, I see it as we're not counting up to really a new event about to take place. It's a continuation of the link that already has started between the beginning of Passover and the end goal of Passover, which is Shavuot.
Very nice.
So we're, okay?
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Just the side. Okay. So I'd like to share with you the thought on this from a 20th century Talmudic scholar and philosopher, Eliyahu Dessler. And he teaches the following. The first day is a miraculous time when we leave Egypt. It was the establishment of our nation. But, he goes on to say, the challenge of becoming a nation is the ability to do something ourselves, not through God's miraculous being. This is the essence of the second day. The test of every revolution is the day after. The process begins from the point of our responsibility.
Nice.
Very nice. Keeping these thoughts in mind, we will now look at a text that will suggest how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai might have related to these two thoughts. Everybody sees the text?
Yes.
Yes?
I do.
Okay. So we're going to read, comment, and again, even if I don't ask for it, if someone wants to say something, please unmute yourself.
We're sitting.
And then when you are done talking, mute yourself back on. Somebody sitting next to me said. So, so let me give you just a little background to this text. And let me say at the outset, the text and the Agadah that we are about to read has no historical claim to authenticity. The main character, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, yes, but perhaps not exactly this narrative. The story is set 70 years after the Romans had destroyed all of Jerusalem, around 132, 135 CE. The Romans had depopulated Judea and left only a tiny remnant in the Galilee, while they were still continuing to prohibit Torah study. As the text opens, a group of rabbis are discussing the reconstruction or the urban renewal by the Romans. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai were sitting, and Yehuda ben Gerim was sitting beside them. Rabbi Yehuda opened and said, "How pleasant are the acts of this nation. They established markets. They established bathhouses. They established bridges." Rabbi Yosef was silent. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai answered and said, "Everything they established, the Romans, they established only for their own needs. They established markets to place prostitutes there, bathhouses to pamper themselves, and bridges to take tolls." Yehuda ben Gerim went and retold their words, and it became known to the Roman government. They said, "Yehuda, who extolled, let him be extolled. Yosef, who was silent, let him be exiled to Sepphoris." Sepphoris is Sipori, which is, I'm sure some of you have been there, in central Galilee, north of Sfat. Yosef, who was silent, let him be exiled to Sepphoris. Shimon, though, who disparaged, let him be killed. Okay, so we see that the rabbis, each of them, reacted differently to this reconstruction that the Roman Empire was doing. How does the first Judah react? What do you think? What is he inclined to believe and to feel? Well, anyone?
He was praising nation building.
He was. It's clear, for whatever reason, maybe it was just his character, that he was relating to the national enemy, the Romans, very objectively. He was ignoring the fact that they were oppressing his people, and he certainly was a student. He was ignoring their religious paganism. And he allowed himself to see the renewal as something a good government would do for its citizens. And certainly we can all see what these constructions would be good for. Roadworks help the world become more connected. It enhances trade and communication. The bathhouses promote good hygiene, advocates for physical pleasure, and it creates a culture where citizens sit together and share ideas. So that's the first rabbi. Sorry, just a second. Rabbi Yosei was silent. Now, what does that mean, that he was silent? Does that mean that he did not have an opinion? If you say that he was silent?
No.
No. So I think there are three possible options for why he would have been silent. Anybody want to venture a guess?
Possibly he was thinking about it. Possibly he wanted to wait to make a comment after he heard other opinions.
In fact, I don't see you now. I think that was Shelley.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. He was not rushing to say something. Morley?
Also, he was smart enough to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Okay, now, he might have thought that he was being silent to keep, or he was being smart to keep his mouth shut. The question is why? Because there are three different possibilities. Marlene? Yes?
You're muted. You want to unmute if you want to talk. You have to unmute.
I think he was conflicted. He probably felt there were good and bad in all these actions. The good being some form of normalcy returning to the people, and the bad being conflicted about what are the repercussions.
Okay, Helen.
Could it be that he didn't trust Rabbi Yehuda?
Which Rabbi Yehuda?
The first one.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I don't know his background, but he's the one who went and told.
No, it's those are two different Rabbi Yehudas.
Okay, so the second one then.
Okay, now, very good. One possibility definitely is something to what Helen said, but Yehuda ben Gerim.
And he wasn't, they have him separated, like they were all sitting, and then they say he was sitting beside them, as if he wasn't part of the group, but just.
Interesting.
He's a spy in their midst.
That you picked on that, and his name, he was the son, he was a ger. His parents' background was pagan, and he in fact is the one who then goes to relate the news. In the Amidah, the silent prayer that we say, how many brachot are there? 18, the Shmona Esrei. Count when you get off this Zoom with me, it's actually 19. But to remember history, we still call it Shmona Esrei 18. But at this time, the Lamal Shinim, the Birkat Haminim, the prayer that says, please God, punish those who are informing on us, that was instituted about this same time because of people like Yehuda ben Gerim. So it could be that the rabbis were afraid of him going as a spy. It could be, as I think I heard, afraid of Roman retaliation. And one more possibility, anybody? As we get to know Bar Yochai, Shimon Bar Yochai, it could be that he was actually, knowing Rabbi Bar Yochai, was afraid of challenging him. Okay, now let's get to our key character. And he vehemently criticizes the Roman Empire and its actions. Now, what would be possible reasons for him doing so? And perhaps not having anything to do with the particular construction that they're doing. He, unlike the first Yehuda, was not able to be objective. What could be two possible reasons that he is so critical without us knowing more about him, but just knowing about the period of time that he lived in?
Well, the Romans are still not allowing study of Torah.
Absolutely. He is disgusted with this prohibition. Also, if I didn't say, but I think I did, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a student of Rabbi Akiva. He was aware of the cruel murder. I don't know murder is anything if not cruel, of his teacher. And he might, just for that reason alone, be so upset with them. But as we will come to read, those two reasons are not the only reasons. So let's go on. We saw in the last paragraph there that Yehuda, of course, the Romans liked, and Yossi, because he was silent, not here or there, they were going to exile him. And Shimon Bar Yochai, they are going to be looking to kill him. So we go on to our next paragraph. Rabbi Shimon, went with his son and hid in the Beit Midrash, the house of study. Each day, his wife brought him bread and a jug of water, and they ate. When the decree became more severe, he said to his son, please don't leave the Zoom when I read this. Women are easy-minded. They may abuse her, and she will reveal us. So, let's not make that women are easy. That's, again, another class. I think in this case, to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though another class could also say his feelings in general about women, not to be applauded. But in this case, he's picturing how long would a gentle woman be able to put up with the torture that they would put her through. They would abuse her, and she would possibly, not wanting to, but would reveal where they were. But why did they go to the Beit Midrash in the first place? Why not to their home? Anyone?
Their home can't be safe.
Why less safe than the Beit Midrash?
Well, the Romans must know him. He must be in their eyes. So they would know where he is. And his wife is there.
And if they're not allowed to study Torah, then the Beit Midrash must be a hidden. It's not a known factor.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay. We'll suggest that, as my teacher of long ago, Noam Tzion, and I share some of his thoughts now and throughout our time of the Hartman Institute. I remember vividly learning this section for the first time many, many years ago with him. He suggests that the Beit Midrash, just as the cave later on, isn't just a hiding place, but it's an alternative to the Roman civilization that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai so adamantly rejects. And let's keep that in mind. So now they decide to leave the Beit Midrash. I continue reading. They went and hid in a cave. A miracle happened. A carob tree and a spring of water were created for them. They took off their clothes and sat up to their necks in sand. All day they sat and studied, and when the time came to pray, they got out of the sand, dressed their bodies, covered their heads, and prayed, and again took off their clothes, all in order that they not wear out the clothes, because those were the only clothes they had for the 12 years. They dwelt in the cave for 12 years. So similar to the Beit Midrash, the cave is also an alternative. They are quite
Look
content.
into the kitchen, Gersh, if you want to lie back and snooze.
Please mute yourself, Sheila. Okay, good to hear you. So the cave, similar to the Beit Midrash, allows them to study, as it says, day in and day out for 12 years. And that's all they're doing. Now, a few things that we have to notice here. So what is it that makes them take their clothing off? It suggests here so that they don't wear them out. And instead of the clothing, they're using the sand because they have some level of modesty, and it's considered inappropriate for the time of tefillah, praying. There, you definitely should be dressed. But let's suggest something beyond that. What does the taking off of the clothes perhaps symbolize? Because if Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were in that cave for 12 years, even if you're scared that maybe somebody is hunting you down, that's a pretty long time to isolate yourself and just study without putting study down. So it has been suggested that he's actually looking, Bar Yochai, at the cave as being very similar to the existence that Adam and Eve had in Gan Eden. For him to sit and study is paradise. And going back pre-civilization, it's a possibility. Something else that we should note. The carob tree and the water. Where did that come from? And that it lasted for 12 years. Where would that have come from?
It says
Anybody?
a miracle.
A
Whatever.
miracle.
A
So
miracle.
God would have provided that for them. Now keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to God's stand on Shimon Bar Yochai and his son's behavior. So at this point, he's sympathetic, God, to the two, providing them with this food and drink. They dwelled in the cave for 12 years. What happens after that? Eliyahu, or a bat call, heavenly voice, came to the opening of the cave saying, "Who will inform Bar Yochai that the emperor died and the decree is annulled?" They hear this, And they went out. And what happens? They saw men plowing and sowing. Rabbi Shimon said, they forsake eternal life and busy themselves with temporal life. And every place they turned their eyes to was immediately burned. Now, whether it literally is burnt or whether they were just looking at these farmers with such distaste for the activity they were involved in, for it was not learning Torah. And then a heavenly voice, Bat Kol, came out and said to them, did you go out to destroy my world? Return to your cave. And they returned. Now, what is it that bothered Bar Yochai and his son when they came out of the cave? I mean, really bothered them to the fact that they burnt them. They felt that they were no better than the Romans, in fact, because, in fact, one of the things, besides being upset for his teacher's death and for not being able to study Torah publicly, Bar Yochai, extreme, a zealot for the study of Torah, one would say absolutely, uncompromisingly committed to the study of Torah as the exclusive activity of a person, he was bothered that these people were doing something other than learning Torah. So he was as upset with the Jewish farmers as he was with the Romans. What's the obvious question? How can the rabbi and his son be opposed to these farmers? They're simply looking to produce food in order to sustain human life. So something doesn't sit well with most of us with that. Now, if we said earlier that God provided the miracle of the carob tree and water, he was sympathetic to their cause, understanding as the God of Torah that they were upset that they couldn't publicly teach and learn. What happens to God here? Look at it again for a moment. A heavenly voice came out and said to them, did you go out to destroy my world? Return to your cave. What happens to God's perspective in this paragraph? Is he still sympathetic?
He's angry that they reject the world, that they...
Absolutely, absolutely. He calls it, did you go out to destroy my world? And he immediately sends them back into that cave. So the God who was guarding the Torah is now guarding his creations, my world. And so they return to the cave. They dwelled for 12 months, saying, the sentence of the wicked is hell. In hell is 12 months. A heavenly voice went out and said, go out from your cave. What happened in those 12 months represented by something that is said, that makes the heavenly voice feel that it's time to let them out again. What do we see here? In that sentence, the sentence of the wicked in hell is 12 months.
Is that an atonement bracha?
Well, I think it's the beginning. Okay, if we said just a few moments ago that they looked at the cave as a Gan Eden because they were able to dwell on what they both loved doing and with each other, the chevruta. Now, if it's being suggested that they're calling that very same cave hell, what must be going on if they're not as comfortable?
Growth.
Their attitude changed, and they reflected on their outlook, their world outlook.
Yes,
And
both.
also,
Yes.
I don't think they could enjoy their studies anymore. Before they were immersed in their studies, but now it was hell.
Yeah.
I think too that just because I jumped down to the next verse, that there may have been disagreement as to between the two of them, whereas they were on the same wavelength when they originally went into the cave. I think both of them had a different view of what they saw when they went out.
Absolutely, and we will refer to that in a moment.
But isn't it also that they've been chastised by God? I mean, here they were thinking that they're so virtuous that for 12 years they've been studying intensely, and I would like to understand why they were buried in sand to do that. That has a lot of weird symbolism. I wonder if you could address that when you get on to, when you finish this thought.
Okay.
But they're being chastised, and here you think you're being so virtuous and so pure, and then all of a sudden you're chastised and you're sent back to the cave.
Yeah, and they must trust what God would deal out to them in the same way that they enjoyed the food and the drink. But you're absolutely right, Helen. If God is yelling at them and saying, "How dare you do this to my creatures?" then somehow, perhaps that was the stimulus for them to begin to reflect.
Bracha,
Sure.
I think that there's something else going on here. I think that when they went into the cave, God looked at them and he appreciated the decision that they had made. When they left the cave and looked at the others who had lived their lives in those 12 years, they didn't have the same they were being extremely judgmental about the choice that these people had made.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we know that, well, it's funny for me to say we know, but I've always felt that God is a lot more understanding than certain human beings are. And God, from the beginning, from that same Garden of Eden, when they just lived in the sand and dirt, Helen, that there's actually Midrash that says, Adam and Eve, you're going to walk around this Garden of Eden, because it's not always going to be that way. You aren't probably going to let human beings let it stay as a garden, and you are going to be the ones, together with every other human being, who are meant to fix it. And right in that, Shimon Bar Yochai has to understand that that was part of God's plan, that he needs human beings to take the responsibility that we mentioned in our first thought and not rely on miracles, and that I want you, God says, to be my partners, and this word has appeared a few times in our text, l'taken et ha'olam, as we say in Aleinu, to fix this world. you're going to be part of that with me. We have a world, it's going to be material, and I want you to help me live it and fix it. So you're right. I think Marlene, who says that you think that Shimon Bar Yochai and his son saw things a little differently. Let's carry on. They went out. Wherever his son, Rabbi Elazar, smote, Rabbi Shimon healed, which means that this son of his, who perhaps was miseducated, and we know that that can take a long time to change if somebody has been miseducated, and Rabbi Shimon will have to suffer through that. But we can see, whereas Rabbi Elazar still smites, Rabbi Shimon heals. But look at what he says. My son, you and I are sufficient for the world. Now, what do you make of that statement? You and I are sufficient for the world. How do you read that?
If everyone does what we do, it may be enough.
Ah, okay. Anybody see? Yeah, good. Anybody see it a little differently?
I do, Bracha.
It
I
reminds
would
me
say
of
that,
the-
it's Brenda. I would say that, oops.
Go ahead. I don't hear you.
Okay, I would say that they're saying because we have been doing all of this, it carries the rest of the world.
Now, does that sound arrogant?
No.
Yes, but it still also indicates that the others, their actions are sufficient, and that they shouldn't judge the others.
Ah, okay, okay.
Bracha, I'm seeing a sense of each of the two of them represent the balance between what they were doing in the cave and the reality of the real world out there where food has to be grown, and that each of the two of them representing those two sides come together to make a whole.
Absolutely.
I just have to refer to the song Ani Ve'ata. Ani Ve'ata.
I knew you were going to sing it. I knew you were going to sing it. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Much can be said about that song, and perhaps at another time. But whereas in the beginning, if he had said, we are sufficient for the world, we might have heard just the arrogance. But as again, it could be that Shimon is trying to now re-educate, as I said, his son, and he's trying to win him over by saying, you know, you and I make such a good team. The way we studied inside that cave, that if you're with me and I'm with you, we will be able to help together with the others, as somebody just said, redeem this world. All possible. Let's move on. When the eve of the Shabbat arrived, they saw a certain old man who was holding 2 bunches of myrtle running at twilight. They said to him, why do you need these? He said to them, to honor the Shabbat. And they said, would not one suffice for you? He said, one for Zachor et HaShabbat, from Exodus, remember the Shabbat, and one for Shamor et HaShabbat, observe the Shabbat. Rabbi Shimon said to him, his son, Rabbi Elazar, see how dear is a commandment to Israel. Rabbi Elazar's mind was set at ease. So what is the significance here? How did the old man continue this healing process? Because Shimon Bar Yochai and his son began to see that it is possible, on one level, for you to be a farmer, but to also know the Torah. Because here, in fact, this old farmer is quoting psukim, verses from the Torah. Now, I think this really indicates what really was bothering Shimon Bar Yochai. Not just how awful, horrific the Romans were in their behavior to the Jews and to Rabbi Akiva, his teacher, but Shimon Bar Yochai was known, as we've seen, to deny the validity of anything except Torah. Now, what he grew to understand is that valuing Torah doesn't mean just when you're actually sitting and studying, but in the broad sense, living Torah. Our dear teacher, Avram Yoshua Heschel, in his book, The Sabbath, says the following when describing Rabbi Shimon. He was outraged by desecrated time focused on temporal being. So he refused to celebrate the splendor of civilized space. But when he sees this old man being involved with something material, but also being able to look forward to Shabbat and the spiritual, somehow there's a transformation in Shimon Bar Yochai. We go on. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, Rabbi Shimon's son-in-law, heard and went out to greet him. He took Rabbi Shimon to the bathhouse. I would say that's a pretty big transformation. At first, he was condemning the bathhouse, and now he's going. Rabbi Pinchas was massaging Rabbi Shimon's flesh. Seeing that there were clefts in Rabbi Shimon's flesh, he began to weep. And when the tears fell from his eyes, they fell on Rabbi Shimon's flesh, and Rabbi Shimon was yelping from pain. Rabbi Pinchas said to him, "Alas, that I see you so." Rabbi Shimon said to him, "Blessed are you that you see me so. For if you did not see me so, you would not find me so learned." Meaning he's saying, I have become that much more learned because of my time in the cave. For originally, when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai raised an objection, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair solved it with 12 solutions. But now, when Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair objected, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai solved it with 24 solutions. Meaning, he says, because the time I had to study B'chavruta with my son, I am that much more learned. So he is definitely still praising the learning. But now, look what happens. And I know our time is running out, but we must hear this. Rabbi Shimon said, since a miracle occurred for me, I will go and fix something. We're going to skip that. So if somebody said before that part of the process of him repenting, so to speak, was because initially God rebuked him, he now is showing that he feels gratitude and therefore he wants to fix something. He realizes that he should be grateful that he was saved from the hands of the Romans. Rabbi Shimon said, is there something that needs fixing? Now, we don't know whether he was actually going to physically go fix something or whether he was thinking in a way that is proper, that I can use Torah to teach me what needs to be fixed. They said to him, there is a part of Tiberias which is of doubtful impurity, and it causes much trouble for the priest to go around it. Wherever the ground was hard, he ruled pure. Wherever was loose, he marked. What does he do? He gets involved, first of all, with real issues. We know that Kohanim are not meant to be in cemeteries. He goes to a cemetery where it had been very difficult for the Kohanim to walk They had to walk, I'm just giving you some background, kilometers around because to make sure they didn't stand on a grave and the impurity. So what Shimon Bar Yochai did was to work with the land so that they could walk through. Without dwelling on that, it's clear this was an act of him reaching out to society, being involved, and making life easier for other beings. Whereas before, he didn't understand that concept of people needing to help others, such as the farmers were doing. Now, this was all discussed in a court. After that court, we see a certain old man said, the son of Yochai made a cemetery pure. He's being critical of him. Rabbi Shimon says to this old man who had been in the court discussion, if you had not been with us when we made the decision to purify this place, apparently alluding to a vote on this matter, or even if you had been with us but had not voted with us, you would have spoken well. But since you were with us and voted among us, should they say, even prostitutes beautify each other with makeup? How much the more so should scholars? Rabbi Shimon cast his eyes at him and he died. Wow. Why does he bring in these prostitutes again? He's coming down on this old man who is removing himself from all the others in the court who had found solidarity on this issue, and he's condemning him. And he says, you are worse than prostitutes, because even prostitutes loyally help each other with their cosmetics, dressing up. Now, very interesting. He had damned the prostitutes, the places where prostitutes were earlier. When he kills this old man, perhaps he realizes how strong, extremely harsh he had been earlier in his life. And perhaps he's looking really, when he looks at that old man from the court, he's looking to kill a bit of himself as his final stage in his transformation. And then sure enough, Rabbi Shimon went out to the market and he sees that Yehuda ben Gerim, the one who had made these 12, 13 years happen, of Gan Eden, but also of hell. And he sees Yehuda ben Gerim and he said, is this one still in the world? And he set his eyes upon him, Yehuda, and turned him into a heap of bones. Now, I plead with you, don't let these two acts, whether they're literal or not, of him having still these strong feelings that he's killing first the older man in the court and now this Yehuda. We don't expect complete transformation overnight. He's still militant. And between you and me, maybe we still need militants, not extreme militants, but he believed in something so important, so very important, that he became a zealot. But a zealot doesn't change overnight. And so with these last two horrific incidents, killing, he's shown that he's human. But we have to agree that he has grown and he is a man to be celebrated. And we can only pray Okay. That as we are continuing to celebrate Lag BaOmer and studying Torah, that we will continue to realize that we have the opportunity to follow our great teachers of Torah and celebrate their lives on such a day and throughout. But as we said in our first thought, we don't ever begin to say that we are in heaven. We are constantly on that ladder, and we begin with the Omer and the mundane. Yes, we'll have certain people who specialize in sitting and studying Torah. And we need those people. We need those people, as long as they recognize the need for farmers. Chag Lag BaOmer Sameach, be well.
Thank you very, very much. It was very interesting.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Goya.
You talked a lot. Hi. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Gloria.